G'day guys, welcome back to the Rugby League Guru podcast. We're going to get stuck into the Canterbury Bulldogs best 17 heading into 2025. Obviously the best story of 2024 in my opinion, the rise of the Canterbury Bulldogs. Very keen to see how they go in 2025. There is obviously a history in this league over the last decade or so of teams coming from, the bottom 8, the bottom 4, bursting and exploding one year, climbing up that ladder rapidly and then falling back down the year after. I think Canterbury can avoid that, but history tells us it is very, very likely. Even in the last 4 or 5 years, it's become incredible. There is always 2 to 3 sides that jump out of the bottom 8 into the top 8 and are on fire and then fall back the year after. So an interesting watch. We'll go through my best 17, and personally, I think this 17 will be pretty close to the 17 that Cam Serraldo picks. So we'll go through that in a minute. If you would like to watch all this content a week earlier, guys, it has been in the Roo Crew for over a week. The link is in the description if you'd like to join us. If you're a Supercoach player, we've got all the content in the world for you. We've got team reveals. We've got stats. Absolutely everything. My notes from Beers and Break-Evens over the last few weeks will be dropped in there as well for you guys to have a look at. Heap of content. So much coming your way in the Roo Crew. Come and jump in there. All right, let's have a look at this Canterbury Bulldogs lineup. At fullback, Connor Tracy obviously owned that jersey last year. I believe they began the season with Blake Taff at 1. Connor Tracy eventually took it off him, and I think he will remain there. I think he was probably the most underrated fullback in the comp last year. I thought he was really, really impressive, Connor Tracy. We've been talking about him for a number of years here on the Guru podcast that he just needs an opportunity to show what he can do. I didn't expect it to be in the fullback jersey, but I'm absolutely stoked to see him finally grab a jersey in the NRL and hold on to it. So Connor Tracy, he will be the one for Canterbury, absolute workhorse. Wingers. Had a couple of changes here. Obviously, Josh Addo-Carr has departed. Skelton has left the club as well. For me, I think Kiraz. I know he played a bit of centre last year. I think wing is his best spot, and I really don't think it's close, to be honest with you. He can play centre, he's handy there, but I think he's a fantastic winger. I would be keeping him on the wing personally. So Kiraz on one wing. On the other side, you've obviously got Blake Wilson, who was there last year. Marcelo Montoya has arrived as well. Personally, I'd go for the experience in Marcelo Montoya. I think he's hard to handle. Both are left wing specialists, so it's sort of up to them which way they go, and maybe trials will decide this one. But if I had to pick between Blake Wilson and Montoya right now, I'm probably leaning towards Marcelo Montoya, but I don't think you can go wrong with Blake Wilson. We'll see how that one plays out in the trials. As far as the centre goes, these 2 spots, they pick themselves. Stephen Crichton, Dally M centre and captain of the year last year. He was incredible, captain of this club. He will line up at right centre, the first guy picked on this team sheet. Not far behind him, to be fair, is Bronson Cherry, who only returned to the NRL last year. I remember watching him play the trial at in the preseason. I think it was against the Melbourne Storm, and he looked really good. It was played out at Belmore, and from there he just went from strength to strength, and he's locked himself in at left centre. I still think there's a world where Bronson Cherry can play rep football in the future as well. So obviously did the crime, served his time, all that sort of stuff. He's back in the game, and he's doing really good things, Bronson, so shout out to him. They would be my centres, Bronson Cherry and Stephen Crichton. I think they're just about automatics in that side. All right, let's move to the halves. Matty Burton, the star in this side. He will line up at 5'8". I thought he developed really well last year. Came up with some very big moments in really crucial moments as well. So Matty Burton, he'll be at 5'8". I think he found a really good balance with Toby Sexton. I was one of the guys at the start of the season that was saying I think you start with Hutcho. I think he's the better combination. I didn't think there'd be all that much upside in Sexton or he'd get much more out of Burton. I was completely fucking wrong. He was fantastic once Sexton arrived. So I think Sexton is the right guy to partner with Burton. Is Sexton going to be the halfback in 5 years' time? I'm not too sure. There's a lot of young guys there that are very impressive. Obviously headlined by Mitch Woods. You've got Cassius Tia as well. So a number of guys there to talk about. But I think Sexton will be the halfback to start the season, and I think he'll be the first choice 7 for 2025. Let's move into the forward pack. The engine room. Maxi King, he starts in the front row for me. The best front row forward at the club until Leo Thompson arrives. So Max King, he will line up with Sam Hughes, I think. Sam Hughes isn't an elite front row forward, but he will do a job for you. I don't think Sam Hughes will play huge minutes. I reckon he plays, the opening 20 minutes. He'll be the first guy subbed off the field, and he'll play 20 minutes later in the game as well. That's Sam Hughes' role, and I think he can do it at a reasonably high click. Hooker, Reid Marnie, obviously, had a big year last last year. He's obviously a bit of a fucking pest, and I love that about him. When Canterbury's at their best, they are pissing people off and getting under their skin, so I love to see it. Reid Marnie will be the hooker. On the edges, Viliami kick out Jacob Preston. They were obviously the starting edges last year. I will say this, Satili Tupanua has arrived at the club. I think it's worth watching how this all plays out. Now, Kikau is not an 80-minute edge back rower. I think you'll find towards the back end of his career, he'll probably end up as a middle forward eventually. I don't think that's going to happen this year, so I still think Kikau will start on that edge. Jacob Preston, towards the back end of last season, there was a couple of games where they took him off early and he wasn't playing the entire 80 minutes. I just think it's worth watching this spot. Obviously, Satili Tupanua, he's arrived. I sort of assumed he would play as a middle forward. There has been rumours around that he could play on the edge. So whether that's giving Kikau a spell, whether it's giving Preston a spell, whether, maybe Satili Tupanua starts on that edge and Preston comes off the bench to give Kikau a spell, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I don't think that is as locked in as what people are expecting. If it was up to me, though, I would go with Kikau on the left edge, Preston on the right edge, and I'd bring Tupanua off the bench as a middle forward. But I'm just hearing stuff, and you hear stuff all preseason, what's true, what's not, fuck knows. But I'm hearing that it could be a little bit different. So we'll see what happens with Canterbury there. Jersey 13, Kurt Mann. And I think you talk about Connor Tracy being an unsung hero. My God, Kurt Mann, as soon as he was injured or out of this team, he straight away went, oh, fuck, I can see how important he is as the link man. So Kurt Mann, I think he'll be an automatic in Jersey 13. We get to the bench, and Jersey 14 is a really interesting conversation. Two guys come to mind for me, Bailey Hayward, who I love, and Jamin Salmon, who can cover a range of positions. I'd probably argue that Salmon can cover more positions. I think he can play out in the centres, 5'8", lock on an edge. Bailey Hayward's more of sort of a halfback, 5'8", hooker kind of guy. But I'm also not sure if I want Reid Marnie to go the full 80. And if I had to pick one of them to come on for him, it would definitely be Bailey Hayward. So I probably lean towards Hayward, despite Jamin Salmon offering you more versatility. I think the way they're going to play their game and what works best for this side, I think Hayward's probably the slightly better option. Coming off the bench, Jersey 15, Josh Curran. I think he is pretty much an automatic in this side. A lot of people would want to start him. I want him coming off the bench. I don't think it's the same bringing Sam Hughes on as it is bringing Josh Curran. I think you're better off letting Sam Hughes start for the first 20 minutes, him come off, and then potentially the tempo gets lifted. So Josh Curran off the bench, I like. Satili Tupanua, as I said, I would bring him off the bench. I'd use him as a middle forward. I do think there's every chance he could end up being an edge guy in this team, though we know he can play there. So yeah, keep an eye on that situation. The last jersey is an interesting one. It's either going to be a Monet, who's arrived over from the English Super League. I've heard that he's doing pretty well there. We're going to have to see how he goes in trials and whatnot. I think his role off the bench would sort of be 30 to 40 minutes. I don't think he'd have to do a heap, but I think he has got a bit of upside that he could provide for them. The other one is Curtis Moran, who I love. I love having, he sort of fits into that sort of Ruben Cotter sort of mold. He's an undersized front row forward, but he's got good leg speed. He's too tough for his own good. He'll put his head where most wouldn't put their foot. I like having those guys coming off my bench, and I think he's when you talk about the dogs of war sort of stuff, I think people outside of Canterbury probably underappreciate Curtis Moran a little bit, and maybe I'm underappreciating him, not having him as an automatic in this side. I just think if a Monet can be that front row forward that they're looking for until Leo Thompson arrives, maybe he gets the start on him. But yeah, Curtis Moran, he's got the runs on the board. He'd be my choice right now, but I want to see a Monet and how he goes in the trials to see if he's ready to take up that spot. But Curtis Moran, he's done a job for the last few years, and he just seems to improve year on year. So I'd be happy to have him coming off my bench. Curran and Tupanua to rotate through the middle, and Moran as well with a bit of leg speed. I like the X factor that he can bring. All right, that's my 17 for the Canterbury Bulldogs as it stands. So Connor Tracy, Kiraz, Cherry, Crichton, Montoya, Burton, Sexton, Maxi King, Reid Marnie, Hughes, Kickout, Preston, and Kurt Mann. My starting 13. My bench would be Hayward, Curran, Moran, and Tupanua, pending a Monet and how he goes in trials. So when you have a look at the rest of the squad, the guys that didn't make this team, Blake Taff offers great versatility. Wilson can obviously play wing, could play centre, I reckon, too, but obviously wing is his spot. Very good winger. Anari Tuwala, another one that Maybe I've slept on, but I would probably rather the other two before him. He's come down from the Newcastle Knights. He's shown glimpses over the years of being a very good footballer. I'm keen to see him with a fresh start and how he goes. Drew Hutchison, who offers some versatility. Young Mitch Woods, the young halfback of the future. You've obviously got Cassius Tia as well, who I believe is going to break into the top 30. Another guy who came through the Rooster system, made his way over Canterbury, was a big part of their Jersey Flegg winning side last year. Saluka Fafita, another guy to have depth in the forward pack. Harry Hayes, who played some footy last year, really solid guy. Jake Turpin, you got Sutton as well. And a young fellow that I think is a good chance to break into the top 30 is Underhill, I believe his name is. He was the Jersey Flegg man of the match in the grand final last year, has apparently really impressed in the preseason. So blonde-haired front row, a bit of that Aidan Tolman, James Graham sort of vibe that the Bulldogs are known for. So one to watch out for there as well. I reckon he's going to have a good little season and make his way into first grade over the next 12 months or so. So that's my Canterbury Bulldogs side for season 2025. Honestly, guys, I think Cam Serrato will pick a pretty similar side. I don't think I've got any wildly curly ones in there. I think that's what his side will sort of look like. Give or take maybe a 14 or a bench forward. Maybe he goes with a Wilson over a Montoya, but I probably think Montoya will get the nod. So I think my Bulldogs 17 is going to be pretty accurate there and pretty close to what it was. I do think that what it will be. I think that the second rowers might be an interesting watch between Kikau, Preston, and Tupanua. I think if one of them, I genuinely think if a Tupanua jumps out of the ground in the trials on the edge, I think he could potentially grab a spot there. So bit of pressure on everyone there, which is what you love to see. And yeah, the Canterbury Bulldogs obviously made it all the way to the finals last year. Sort of fell off a little bit late, but I would argue in the finals game they lost against Manly, I actually thought Canterbury was the better side. It was just a little bit of class from DC and Turbo that separated them at the back end of that game. So hopefully the Bulldogs, they can buck the trend of teams jumping out of the bottom 8 into the top 8 and then falling back down to the bottom 8 next year. And if they do, the streets of Belmore are going to be absolutely pumping once again, which I think we're all secretly hoping for. Guys, if you would like to see this content earlier than everyone else here on YouTube, go and join the Roo Crew. The link is in the description. Come and join us for season 2025, $2 a week, $8 a month for all the content you can possibly get in the rugby league world.